Today is the day. Today I'll own the man who broke my heart, who destroyed my sense of self and shattered my innocence. Now, after decades of hard work, I'm going to take away the one thing that matters most to him. And I'll enjoy every single second of my revenge. I walked into that conference room like I owned it. Late, of course. I insisted my lawyers be on time. My hair was freshly blown out, my makeup pristine, and my heels sharp enough to gouge out a man's eye. When I walked into the room, eyebrows raised. The reaction was nothing new. It isn't often a 5'2" redhead comes in with the kind of capital I had access to, especially in the male-dominated timber business. I kept my head held high. Let them underestimate me. I had traveled the world, making deals and working to become a power player in this business, and today I was doing the thing I'd been dreaming about for so long, showing the men who'd wronged me just what I was capable of, like my dad and my grandfather, who'd told me time and time again that the family business was no place for a girl. The joke was on them. I now owned the largest timber company in Maine, and that made me their primary competitor. And my ex-husband, the one who tossed me aside for the chance to grow his family business and impress his dad, I was now the proud owner of 4 generations of his family's legacy, the figurehead of the company he'd lost, the company he'd chosen over me. The best part? He worked for me now. I waited outside the conference room for the perfect moment to make my entrance. I'd already texted a paralegal inside, so I'd know where he was sitting. That way, I could make sure to enjoy the look of total panic on his face when I walked through the door. What would he do when he found out that I'd purchased his family's business? Maybe he'd hyperventilate? Or pee his pants? A girl could dream. I straightened my pencil skirt and reached for the heavy mahogany door. It was showtime.
Early mornings in Maine were hard to beat. The air was still crisp and cool, but it wouldn't be long before that changed. July in Maine was defined by 2 things: humidity and mosquitoes. And lately, I'd found myself rising earlier and earlier, desperate for the tranquil quiet of the early morning. Usually I did chores, read, or walked Clem, but today I was plagued by the overwhelming need to go for a run. I wasn't much of a runner, but I was full of anxious energy, and a good run was the best way to get it out of my system. She was here. I hated it. Also, I loved it. See? I'd spent years trying to extinguish every memory of Chloe and our brief marriage. But despite my best efforts, they'd never completely gone away. Seeing her here, in my hometown, I liked it. I was a masochist, because as much as her proximity made me feel alive, the ensuing crash hurt even more. When I'd run until my lungs gave out, I headed home. Inside, my dog, who didn't bother to get off my couch to greet me, lifted her head and eyed me with suspicion. "Morning, Clem." My heart was still pounding as I headed to the pantry to get her breakfast. Why was I drawn to women who hated me? Why hadn't this wound ever fully healed? After decades, the sting of it was still acute. She was here. She'd purchased our company. So many times over the years, I'd thought about her. I ran into her family pretty regularly. I saw her dad at quarterly meetings, and her siblings all lived in the area. Here and there, I overheard news of her. She was always traveling and working, and she didn't come back much, which was perfectly fine by me. I'd always hoped she had found happiness, that she'd dealt with the grief that had almost drowned her after her mom passed away, and I'd hoped she found a way to move forward. She deserved that. But that was before she'd become my boss. I had signed the contract. I was obligated to serve as operations manager for 1 year. During that meeting, it had seemed like a small price to pay in return for financial security for my family. I'd suck it up, grit my teeth, and push through, like I always did.